Whether you are on an adventure or at the downtown cafe, your answers are no more than a sniff away. Dog Training 360's purpose is simple: to teach you why dogs do what they do, as well as the action steps you need to take to have better communication, connection, consistency, and conceivability with your dog. As we continue our series of adventures and adventure dogs and taking your dogs on adventures and trips and all kinds of things, and as we head into winter, I think that people kind of get stagnant and forget that there's still things to do with your dog, and that you have to be willing to take your dog out and risk the mistakes and the error. And I say that because I was with a client yesterday, and some of their fall and wintertime stuff is having coffee out on the patios and sitting with their dog. And one thing that we discovered was quite a few of the patios were closed. We were going to go to one restaurant that had a great patio, and then so we went and had coffee, and there was some really good failures during that time where I actually didn't have a hold of the leash. Like I had the wrong dog's leash in my hand, and so the dog is a herding dog mix, and he decided he was going to charge at one dog, and I didn't have the leash. And you just have to kind of be ready for failures and learn as you go. But as this last week, I was on a trip to South Dakota, and I had the horses and I had the dogs, and one might think that the dog trainer's dogs are perfect on adventures and there's no crazy stuff, but this trip was probably the best trip that we've had with the dogs. The trip before that, we had peeing and pooping in the crate. We had a bladder infection while we were on our trip and with the dogs. And so this trip was really, I feel like I was prepared a little bit more, but also just into a better routine. I started prepping them a week before, kind of what the drive time was going to look like, when I was going to get them out, and they spent more time in their crate because the travel time was fierce. And so I kind of prepped them beforehand. And then I also was prepared with paper towels and cleaning crates out and garbage bags, and also, some medication for diarrhea and for bladder infections. So I was a bit more prepared for this trip, but it was the prep. And I think that one thing that I learned from this is things that your dog should know or that you should be prepared to teach along the way. Three things that really came to mind and that I really worked on this trip was leash manners and a stay, and also a recall. And those were the three things that I had really kind of indirectly was working on with them anyway. But those three things really came in handy on this adventure, on this trip to South Dakota. And Shannon, what are some of the things that come to mind with, you do take your dogs with you when you go, and some of the key things that you feel like, has been helpful that your dogs know to make the trip more successful?
I mean, it's hard, like, when you're on your trip because you're not at home and you don't have the same schedule.
Yeah.
But I think if you incorporate your routines that you have at home, mm-hmm. You still do those on the trip. So, like, for example, a routine might be you get up from bed in the morning, and then you go out for a little walk, come inside, and your dog can play with toys while you brush your teeth and get ready. Yeah. And then whatever happens for the day happens.
Yeah.
So if you plan ahead that, your dog plays with a specific toy while you're brushing your teeth, and you take that as part of your travel things, mm-hmm. then that part of your routine can be the same. And it doesn't matter what time you get up or that you go in the car after or
Right.
whatever it is, that's something. Or maybe your nighttime routine is when you get home, everyone eats dinner, and then you cuddle on the bed in a big pile of blankies until it's bedtime, and then whatever the bedtime is. So if you plan those things as part of your trip, it makes it more normal, where the dog is like, oh, we just, no matter where we are, we just sort of do these same things, you know? And it helps normalize it for them so that they don't have as much anxiety or bad behaviors coming out on your trip. Which my dog Louie, he has a lot of anxiety with things that are different. And so I do those kind of things when I travel with him.
And I think you have to really think about what your trip is going to be to how can I make this the most normal. And you know, this trip was to a ranch, and they didn't care if the dogs were inside or outside, you know, just whatever they wanted to accommodate. But for me, when we're on the road, my dogs will either sleep in their crates in the back of the truck, or like this case, it was so crazy cold that they were in the barn. And so in their crates. And so, you know, it was a bit off for them because they were like, our crates are coming in here. And so they were a little bit unsettled, but we kept that routine. I would get up, I would come down, and at this ranch, their home is part of the barn. And so you come down out of the house, and we would get out, we would go for a morning run, and then we would eat, and they would eat in their crates. And that's what they do at the house anyway. And so they got into a better, like, it was more normal, like, okay, we can be in this barn. But at first, you know, Caroline was pretty vocal about, you know, pretty stressed, and we got in at 3:00 in the morning. And it was, you know, it's just crazy weather, and, you know, you're just trying to get out of it and get everything unloaded. So it definitely was a bit stressful because of just some of the changes, but the more things became more normal, they were much better dogs overall with it. So keeping those routines, like I fed them on the road, which no, we don't do, but the timeline was the same. You know, I wasn't going to feed them at 3:00 in the morning. We got out, we went to the bathroom, we played around a little bit at one of our stops. I'm like, hey, it's dinner time, you know, feed the dogs. And so they really, they felt that normal feel to what we do. And I think that helps a lot. It made it easier this trip because they were more obedient, if you will. So it wasn't as chaotic trying to get them out, and, you know, they're nervous and stressed, and we can't poop because we're in someplace else. And so, you know, even just taking your dogs out in, you know, where you live in a different routine and having them go to the bathroom.
Oh yeah. Or eat.
Yeah.
Like eat from a bowl in the parking lot or something.
Right.
Because people hardly ever feed their dog, not at home.
Yeah.
And if you go on a big trip, then they're like, no, but we're not at home and I don't have my bowl. And what is going on? And they will not eat. And it might be like 3 days or something on your trip that your dog won't eat.
Yep.
And that stresses people out.
Yeah.
You know?
And yeah, it's for sure. I mean, you know, even, you know, planning, okay, we're going to plan this trip, and the eating schedule is going to be a little bit off. So I should probably we should go for a ride in the car in the morning instead of a walk, and then eat in the car or go eat at the park. And then now we're going to poop and pee at the park, you know, so it definitely, you have to really think about how you can make things normal in a very abnormal
kind
situation.
Of way.
Yeah. But if you don't set your dog up to be successful in that, it's stressful. And it's stressful for them too, because you're like, you've got to poop. I don't want to clean up poop in the crate. I mean, one night it took Caroline, she was so distracted with everything that it took her almost 45 minutes, which normally, just, you know, on our schedule, we like get out and go poop. And then, you know, and it was like, I would like to go to bed, and I know you need to poop because you're showing all the signs that you need to poop. And she's like, I'm going to eat a feather. And I found, you know, I mean, it was just one thing after another with her, just one of those nights. And it was in the middle of the trip. And there was they castrated some horses. And so there was blood smells in the barn, and, you know, so it was she was stressed over that. And at first I'm like, what is the deal in here? And then I'm like, oh, right there, there was some stressy things that happened, and she could smell it. So she was not about to go to the bathroom. And she never did. I mean, I gave her 45 minutes. She never did. I put her in her crate, and just knew I was going to get up earlier that next morning and hope that she didn't have any accidents, and it worked out well. But, you don't really think about, you get in a groove and then you're like, what's off? Why are we having this problem? So, I think it's important as you go on adventures that you think about what the plan is, what's going to be different, and just even setting your dog up to be successful with it, so that it's not just this whirlwind of chaos, because trips are stressful anyway. It doesn't matter if you're heading for fun or, even if you don't have your dogs, trips can be stressy. You got to get stuff ready to go. And so if you can prepare everything to the best that you can, and the dogs are set up to be successful, it sure takes away that stressful piece of it.
Absolutely.
For sure. My advice would be to make sure that you have a good sit and a good stay and good leash manners across the board for any adventure that you're going on. And those are things that I would work on in all kinds of different places. You may train at home and you may do things at home, but those are things that I would definitely say, put him in strange situations and ask for those things and train for those things, because those three things are probably the key pieces to have for taking your dog on a trip and on an adventure.
Or anywhere. I think the number one reason
sure.
why people don't take their dog more places is because they have bad leash manners.
Yep.
And they don't think ahead, I have to work with my dog on leash manners before I go somewhere. They just say, oh, let's go somewhere. Oh, let's take the dog. And then their dog doesn't have any manners and they're, quote, horrible.
Yeah.
And then they're like, oh, this is why we don't take our dog. Our dog's horrible.
Yeah.
And then it prevents them from taking them again.
For sure.
Whereas if you just went on a little walk to the corner every day or something, like when you went to go get your mail, if you took your dog on a little walk to the corner and taught him those leash manners, then the next time that you go out somewhere, then they'll be better.
Yep.
And then, because that's, I think, the number one thing that people are like, oh, my dog is horrible, and I can't take him anywhere.
Right.
You have to take him all of these little things beforehand.
Yeah.
And then once your dog is good, then you're like, oh, my dog's so good, and we can go anywhere, wherever, and it's so amazing, you know.
Yep.
So, but I think that's the number one thing holding people back is they believe their dog can't go. They believe their dog is, quote, bad.
Yeah, and it creates so much stress.
Yeah,
I take it. Yeah. And when we talk about adventures, it's not just on this big long trip, for sure. It's going to the coffee shop,
sure,
and sitting and having coffee. I mean, that's an adventure to me, and that's more when people all the time like, do you take your dog for a walk? No, we go on adventures. We don't just go for a walk. And it's not that going for a walk is a bad thing. It's just that's not our lifestyle with our dogs. And so it's more of an adventure thing that we'll walk to someplace.
Yeah, to the my favorite is to the library.
Yeah.
That's where we go all the time. Go on a walk to the library.
Yeah. And it's an adventure. I mean, that's an adventure.
Yeah.
Because to me, if you go for a walk, you're walking like around the neighborhood. But if you go on an adventure, it may be that you go in the car and then you go someplace with your, even going into Home Depot or Lowe's or Nordstrom's or someplace like that you're, we're driving someplace and going in someplace, or we're going for a walk to someplace. To me, that's an adventure. And no matter what, it can be down the road, it can be 500 miles away. It doesn't matter. But if those adventures are what, to me, make or break a dog overall. If we can walk with leash manners and go sit and have coffee and enjoy coffee and not have our coffee spilled all over the place and the dog barking and pacing and, jumping all over the waitress and waiters and, I'm going to take my dog if I can just have him lay down and I can enjoy.
Because that little adventure covers all those three things.
Right.
Those three major things.
Yep.
That you need for a big adventure, you can cover in a small one.
Yep.
And have a little teeny training.
Yep.
Every day or every other day or whatever your schedule allows.
Yeah.
To work on just those three little things.
Right. Yeah, for sure. So I think, just to sum this up, go on adventures and work on your stay, your leash manners, and your recall. Because at some point, you're gonna want them to open up and run and take them off leash, or if they happen to get off leash, you're not, it's
chasing
not
your
just
dog.
this mess. So those are the key things that I would say work on and go on adventures, small, and then head into some bigger things to take your dog with you.